Hey y'all, welcome to Geek Freaks. I am Frank, and today I'm joined by Scott
Hello.
and Jonathan.
Hey, y'all.
Today we're going to be talking about San Diego Comic Con. It's our whole focus. There's a ton to go around, but we're going to dig into the network updates real quick. We have a brand new sloop that just dropped this weekend, basically in honor of Comic Con. We had to do a superhero movie. I went with the best ever, Dark Knight. So go check that out. A lot of Heath Ledger praise, but I think that's fitting. And then we have a new Disney Moms that just came out about Cars, and a new Trek Freaks with a Disney mom herself, Susan. So go listen to all the episodes. A lot of our shows are on break right now, but it sounds like September is when we're going to get a lot of them back. So looking forward to that. And then also starting in August, we're going to be running ads for NordVPN. So just wanted to kind of give you guys a heads up for that. It'll be right before everything starts getting underway. Just wanted to give you that warning ahead of time. But I mean, if you guys want to go to NordVPN, code Geek Freaks gets you a month free. So I'm just saying, throwing that out there. All right, let's get right into Comic Con. Jonathan, what did you want to get out of Comic Con? What were you looking forward to?
So I know there's going to be all this Marvel and superhero movie stuff going on, but what I was really looking forward to is more Avatar news.
Yeah.
We heard they opened the Avatar studios, and I'm like super pumped, ready for them to start pouring out content, and we don't even really have a drip yet going. So
we got one very small drip. Yeah.
Yeah. So people were kind of anticipating that we were going to see. They said they're making 3 movies.
Mm-hmm.
So one was going to follow Avatar Kyoshi. One was going to be Zuko's story.
Yeah.
Like the book after the series ended. And then I don't remember what the third one was supposed to be, but anyways, they revealed in the Comic-Con that this is going to be about Avatar Aang and his friends when they're a little bit older, like young adults, and kind of it sounds like the period between Avatar and Legend of Korra. Oh yeah, that's what the third movie was thought to be, was Legend of Korra. Yeah,
which I think that'll be the case. I think it'll be a Fire Lord Ozai one as well. I think they could really kind of fold in a lot of that story of what does the Fire Nation represent now that they're not conquering the entire time.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that'll be very interesting.
So I think that'll be cool, and you get to see that kind of people love the steampunk industrial revolution, period, and so we see that transition from one time period to another.
And the founding of Republic City too, which is gonna be a really big part of the story, I'm sure. Scott, as for you, what were you wanting to see out of San Diego Comic Con?
So I think, one of the big things on my mind and probably most people's minds is, we have these big franchises, Marvel, DC, and between, obviously DC's has a lot of growing pains, and, Marvel, you mix in COVID, it's just kind of like, where are these franchises even going anymore?
Right. Yeah.
And you can really feel it, a lot of some of them, some of the movies that have come out, they've been very mixed, reviews, and it's starting to hurt, I think, some of these franchises. Of course, then, Thor: Love and Thunder apparently made a bunch of money, so
yeah,
maybe it's not hurting as much as we think it is.
Like, oh no, I'm suffering from $600 million piling on me, which is what the numbers were this morning. Yeah. That's basically what I wanted to. I wanted to hear some sort of direction, because that was the common complaint, especially with Phase 4 of Marvel, is these aren't aiming somewhere. We're not going for a Thanos. And so I wanted to hear, what's the game plan? What are we aiming at? And then for DC, I've lost all confidence in everything they're doing. So build some confidence in me. Tell me that you're doing these one-offs all the time. Say, hey, you know what? We're just going to keep doing the Batman and Joker, and that's it, and those kind of things. Random Aquaman movies. That's fine. They don't need to be interconnected. That's totally fine. But show me that and let me know that that's the game plan. Because right now it feels like you guys don't have a plan, and that I'm not going to lie, guys. If you guys watch the DC panel, it basically feels like The Rock is running DC right now, and even he's not sure about it. So it felt like a mess. It still feels like a mess. But let's go ahead and go into that Marvel panel, the biggest one of all. It looks like that we're going to be ending Phase 4 with Wakanda Forever. Does Phase 4 feel like it makes more sense now, looking at the information we've got so far? Scott, what do you think?
No, I don't know. I really don't get it still. It just seems, it still just feels like movies for the sake of movies.
Yeah.
I understand, obviously with, the Black Panther side of things, especially, sure, they had to course correct, with the loss of Chadwick Boseman. But other than that, it's just kind of like we're just doing Marvel things, but it still feels very, very directionless to me.
Yeah. And then if you look at I think if you look at, so we have, let's go into phase 5 and phase 6. We'll just discuss what's going on here. This is going to be called the Multiverse Saga, and it's going to end with double Avengers movies, and we'll go into that in further detail. But one of them is going to be the Kang Wars, Kang Dynasty is what you'd call that actually, and then the Secret Wars. So I think when you look back at Phase 4, you do kind of see where they're planting those seeds. But I also feel like Phase 4 has been a little bit of a like, what do we do now in a post Thanos world? So I think we're not only kind of coping with Thanos, we're setting up a multiverse, and we're having to create like larger than life earthbound superpowers, not necessarily like human or not like superheroes, but like Wakanda and like actual nations and stuff. So I think that's kind of what's setting up, because the Kang Wars is going to be actually a person conquering Earth. Like that's what that story's about. And so it's going to be important that you see armies, not necessarily heroes. And I think that's what, Wakanda Forever is going to be setting up. While we had like Doctor Strange that was setting up multiverse a lot more, and things like that. Going into phase 5, we have a lot of movies here. Jonathan, is there anything or shows, anything that's standing out to you?
I can't wait to see Blade, though. To me, it doesn't
Yes.
seem like it fits in with the rest of these very well, but I'm hoping it's amazing because I love the old Blade movies.
Yeah, November 3rd. Yeah, I'm hyped for this as well. But you're right. Yeah, it does kind of, when you go Guardians of the Galaxy, it's one of the big movies of the year. You got Guardians of the Galaxy, Blade. But you know what? I'm hoping Blade's like not funny at all, right?
Yeah, and I think Blade can relate with Daredevil pretty good if they just kind
Yeah,
of portray them similar. Then those can kind of overlap a little.
yeah. We got Thunderbolts is going to be closing out Phase 5. We've been building up Thunderbolts for a while, which is kind of nice. That's actually something that's been built up. But basically, it's the Avengers, but kind of shitty. And so we have U.S. Agent instead of Captain America. We've got Yelena instead of Black Widow. So it's people that we do know. Abomination
Mm.
instead of Hulk. That's pretty
B
cool.
team.
The B team, yeah, the B team. It's kind of like it's gonna have a Suicide Squad feel, I think, which is gonna be good. And then a Captain America: New World Order. Again, when I'm talking about building up nations, that might be another situation to build up nations. This is going to be with Sam Wilson's Captain America too. So no more. Even Chris Evans came out and said, because people were like, I think it was like the Hollywood Reporter that's like, we don't know which Captain America they'll use. And Chris Evans, who played the old version of him, is like, no, I'm not Captain America anymore. Sam Wilson is the Captain America. That's it. I don't understand why this is so confusing to you people. And so he cleared that up. Scott, anything here that's standing out to you?
I mean, we talk about an Avengers movie, but I guess, a lot of people are probably asking, what does the Avengers look like by that time? I
Yeah,
mean, a lot of people have already left the franchise. They're probably going to leave, between now and then. So, I mean, who are the Avengers by
right.
the time we get to these movies? And I'm not sure. Maybe you know more. I don't know. Because I mean, we have a Captain America. Spider-Man will probably still be
Right.
around. Black Widow is pretty much over. Um, they have to introduce a new Iron Man. So, it's just there's a lot, obviously a new Black Panther. Is Chris Hemsworth still gonna be playing Thor by then? I mean, I don't know. He's been around a while. We might be looking for a new kind of Thor replacement, and I'm not sure if they've really planned for all that, because you don't want to just do like Justice League did and just kind of throw together this team of like heroes that no one's really invested in,
Yeah,
that no one really cares about because they haven't even seen, there haven't been these lead up movies like they did in phase 1 and 2 that were really good.
yeah.
Mm.
Well, I think
And it
this
might
is
be
that
time to
investment.
do it might be time to do like the comic books do where you kind of write in and write out characters. So maybe Thor had a really good run and they're like, all right, we're gonna make the next movie is gonna be kind of his sign off where he's gonna go on and maybe isolate his world and they're just gonna live in harmony. And the people decided they don't want to be involved with the drama from Earth or something like that. But in that, he hands the torch to some other alien hero that's gonna come protect Earth in his place, or something like that, to kind of bring some of these great heroes that we've known to love, kind of take them out of the story and bring in new fresh blood.
which is kind of what they do with Sam Wilson, right, with the Captain America.
Yeah.
But you're kind of saying like then we could bring Hemsworth back if we need to. It's hard to bring back, old school Cap. He's very old now at this point, but you could play around with those. And I think I think this is the investment right here. I think this is where we're going to start building up the new Avengers, which we see Daredevil. He's a classic Avenger right there. Ironheart, there's your replacement for Iron Man. Marvels, we're probably going to get a better look at Captain Marvel, and then we have Monica Rambeau and Kamala Khan. So I think we're gonna build a new Avengers out of this. Blade on the Avengers, guys. How,
Hmm.
how dope would that be? Him and Daredevil working together as an Avenger like that. I want to see that so much more than Hawkeye and Black Widow, which are the other two like grounded superheroes in the Avengers. Like those two are better ones.
Yeah.
That's gonna be dope. Um, I think it'll be a bit. I think it's gonna be a bit for us to trust this new Avengers team. It's not gonna be our old school team, but we gotta at least build that trust. And then we'll see how much Secret Invasion throws things off too, because Secret Invasion, although a series, might be very important because we might find out that, oh hey, this one person was a scroll the whole time and fake, and so this person actually doesn't exist or something like that. That could throw things off. And then I want to make sure to call out Loki season 2, because Loki season 1 now apparently is the most important Marvel property of the last 2 years, because it set up not only the multiverse, Kang, the big bad for everybody now. It basically set up everything that's going on for this next saga was this TV show. Very interesting for Marvel to put everything on that one show. So season 2 obviously is going to be setting up the next 2 Avengers movies.
And I wonder how much of that they actually knew they wanted, what was concrete in that, and how much of that was just kind of testing the waters to see what people liked. Because that's what it seems like. It was kind of, we're going to put a lot of options out there and see what really does good in Loki,
Yeah.
and that'll be the direction we continue with. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, they definitely. I think they were definitely setting up the multiverse, and then it
Yeah.
was. I think they've been kind of trying to figure out like how much does the mainstream understand multiverse. There's been a
Yeah.
lot of explaining that. Me and Scott were talking about this a couple days ago, where all of us were Star Trek fans, we're comic book fans, we're video game players. Multiverse is just a term that we know that makes sense to us, but for your average Joe, that might not make much sense. So they kind of have to use these properties to explain multiverse a little bit, the idea that there's parallel universes. And so it takes time to set up. When before, the idea was like, well, you have superhero powers, you put them together, you make a team, and then you can fight an alien invasion. That was easier to explain. We didn't have to explain this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think like if that was too hard for the broad public to grasp, they could have just at the end of it broken the multiverse and said, yeah, it's you can't travel through the multiverse anymore, and that would have been the end of it. But because it got a lot of attention and people really liked it, they're like, okay, we're going to continue this route. Now we see their plans for the next few years.
Yeah.
What we don't see in this, and I'm a little disappointed in, is we don't see anything about X-Men. I thought we were going to be getting some X-Men pretty soon.
Well, if you look at
Uh-huh.
old Phase 6 over here, let's go and move to Phase 6. We've been looking at Phase 5. Phase
Uh-huh.
6, next one down, you'll note that we have Fantastic Four, a ton of dates with no logos, and then 2 Avengers movies in the same year. I mean, 2025, guys, I might just wear Avengers shirt every single day of the month. Because, look, you got on May 2nd, we got the first Avengers movie, The Kang Dynasty. And then on November 7th, we got Avengers Secret Wars, which is one of the biggest storylines ever in Marvel. Actually, they basically redid it because it was such a big deal. I think all these extra dates are going to be... That's where we're going to get our next Thor movie. That's where we're going to get another Doctor Strange. That's where we're going to get X-Men. Because there's a lot of dates that are not shown here. And maybe at D23, which is in September, which is a Disney-only event, we might get a little bit more of an idea of what's going on here. But I think there's going to be some big stuff. Just to kind of give everybody an idea of those 2 big Avengers events. The Kang Dynasty is Kang the Conqueror coming to Earth and actually conquering the planet. And so it should end, the Empire Strikes Back kind of thing, where the bad guy won. And it'll probably end this way, right? Where the bad guy won and Earth is conquered. And we're now under Kang rule. Now, Secret Wars, the newer version of it, is a interdimensional fight where you'll find 5 different Captain Americas fighting alongside each other, fighting against each other, a little bit of everything. And at the end of it, which if you're a DC fan, I know Scott's familiar with the story from the CW verse, all the multiverses basically get squished into one, and then there's only one version of the there's only one universe now, but which is how you make sure the X-Men work out well. But all of a sudden, like the X-Men that were in this universe, now we're always in the main universe. Or, Miles Morales. This is actually how Miles Morales happened. Miles Morales used to be a different version of Spider-Man in a different universe, but now he's part of our universe because of Secret Wars. So that's what can happen there. Any thoughts on Phase 6 and anything still on Phase 5?
Yeah, I'm just excited. I didn't even think about how there's so many blank spots in there. So that's a whole bunch of stuff they just didn't want to tell us yet. But I like the dynamic of X-Men, at least the older movies that we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was one thing I was kind of hoping that we would get to, is that the Avengers, they're so everybody in there is a god. They're
Yeah,
so overdone. I mean, except for like Black Widow and some of the smaller ones, but there's not very level of a playing field. And in the movies, they stretch and try to bring some people down and
yeah.
some people up to level it out. But I'm hoping that as we're working towards more Avengers movies, like we were saying, they're gonna change some of the characters a little bit. So I hope, really hope we get X-Men involved, but to kind of level the playing field amongst the Avengers to make them feel more like a team, like X-Men is.
That's one thing I'll shout out on Phase 5. If you look at like Blade, Daredevil, Ironheart, Echo,
Mm.
that Captain America, Thunderbolts, these are all ground level heroes pretty much, right? They're not like super amazing. Nobody's a god from Asgard. Nobody's,
Mhm.
the supreme magician, whatever, that runs magic, basically. So it's all much more grounded than normal. Even the Guardians of the Galaxy is the most chill group in space you could imagine. So it's pretty grounded for being space pirates. Um, by the way, on that Guardians of the Galaxy, it is the last time that this Guardians of the Galaxy crew will be together. So it sounded very sad and everything like that when they were talking in the panels. And yeah, that'll be too bad.
Yeah, I'm curious to find out, I guess, because it seems I like what Jonathan was saying, right? How Loki just kind of felt like, let's just throw things at the wall, see what sticks,
Yeah.
Um but how many people didn't watch the show that will then go and watch movies,
Mm-hmm.
and how will that affect their experience? Will it just be too many people who are just a little confused, or just just they're just like, this plot's just really weird and I just don't really get it, because they don't have this foreknowledge. Maybe they don't have Disney Plus, or
Right.
maybe they just don't really sit around and watch TV. So I mean, hopefully enough people have watched the show that it won't be too much of an issue. But it is, I think, really kind of a gamble that was just kind of brought on by COVID production issues to base the future of your franchise really on what is explained in a TV show, which is
Mhm.
Yeah.
pretty interesting for Marvel.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of Disney using their power. I mean, their access right now. Like, they can, by putting stuff on both platforms, they're kind of leveraging people into, you got to get Disney Plus, you got to
Yeah.
get caught up and watch a show, because you have to watch the next movie. You're gonna love it. You want it. Like, well, crap, I don't want to watch the next movie and not understand it. So maybe I do need to subscribe. I think they're at the point where they're so, well known and so famous, so popular, that they kind of can convince people to subscribe just to get caught up on that series.
Yeah. And if we look at like, if you guys went to Doctor Strange and didn't watch WandaVision, then
Mm.
your version of Scarlet Witch went from the end of Avengers Endgame, where it was like, hey, we won, and then all the way to the fact that Vision died, so she was sad about that. All the way to the fact that she's straight up evil and
Mhm.
is looking for her kids. That makes no sense if you didn't happen to have Disney Plus. So I think that you're right. Marvel's kind of just like, look, guys, you're gonna need Disney Plus if you want to keep up, and Loki as well. If you didn't watch Loki and freaked out like the rest of us when Kang showed up, and all of a sudden people are talking about, oh my God, that Kang thing, and you're gonna be lost. And I think
Mhm.
that this is a way. There's a pro and a con to that, right? The pro is that Marvel can take time to set up these characters in a better way. If this existed during the first 3 phases, I think there would have been a Thanos series. They would have explained him trying to raise Gamora and all that, which would have made Thanos' character better. So there's that part too, where we can really invest time into these characters and actually learn who they are, instead of just being like, trust me, Iron Man, he shoots stuff. Um, but they also can force things on it. So luckily, we watch Disney Plus. It works out well for us. And
What I think would make Disney Plus a little better in this aspect, the fact that they're trying to connect TV and movies, and they're trying to get money on both ends of it. I think they should offer maybe like a premium membership that's $2 more, something like that, where you can watch all the latest movies maybe just 1 week after theaters instead of waiting like 4 or 5
yeah,
weeks or whatever it is. That way you don't have to pay the money to go if you're already like, man, I need to subscribe to Disney Plus because I got to stay up to date, and now I got to pay the ticket to go into the theaters to watch the movies when they're hot and fresh. I'd rather stay home, watch the movies, and just be a week late rather than have to do both.
even if they did that $30 a movie thing like they were doing during COVID,
Well, it
I
gets
totally.
expensive, but yeah.
Well, but if you think
Yeah.
about it, if you're taking a family, like I go to the movies by myself all the time, which is
Mm.
depressing sounding, but it's actually great, guys.
It's nice, but
The seat next to me gets to hold my popcorn. It's fantastic. So,
right.
um, when but if you think about like $30 for a ticket's great when you take like if just two people, you're basically there with the snacks, and then I
Mhm.
just filled my fridge with snacks, so it's great. But yeah, if they did $30 a ticket, that'd be great for, I don't know, Doctor Strange, somebody something you didn't really care for too much. Looking at the list right here, who am I kidding? I'm gonna be maybe the Marvels. The Marvels I'd probably wait to watch at home. Blade, I'm gonna be in
Mhm.
theaters with my like Blade costume. I'm gonna be wearing
Right.
black glasses in the theater room.
Fangs and everything.
No, I'm getting fangs. So getting
Yep.
fangs. Going
Yeah.
into Comic Con, leaving Comic Con, has your confidence changed in Marvel, Jonathan? What do you think?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I'm a little more confident in Marvel just because we see they do have a game plan moving forward,
Yeah,
though it's not really clear how well it's gonna be executed. And like you're saying, in Phase 6, there's a lot of questions left unanswered. So, but we see they have a direction, and we'll see how well they execute it. But it's good to know they have a plan.
yeah. I myself, I'm far more confident, and I think that I'm way more confident, and I think that they retroactively improved Phase 4 by doing this because
Mm.
now Phase 4 makes a little more sense, um, in the fact that it's this transition phase. We're setting up Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, and that kind of makes sense to me. Scott, what are your thoughts on this going forward? Are you more confident in Marvel?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think we all have to understand just the state the world has been in, the past few years. And that's had an effect on the production of everything, whether it's games, movies, shows, the entire entertainment industry has just been slowed down. They're trying to evolve, like Disney Plus in, okay, well, people aren't going to theaters, but we have these movies that are ready to be sold, so how do we make the money? Um, how do we make our subscription service seem, the best it can be without cutting into movie profits, things of that nature. So it's a transition phase on a lot of different levels, not just the story, because yeah, we're coming out of the Avengers, we're coming out of, a large part of the franchise, and like you said, trying to build to a new Avengers and a new team, and whole new storylines. So it was, I think, just kind of a perfect storm of just difficult conditions for them.
Yeah.
And we have seen some struggles, but it seems like they are really working towards ironing that out, and that's great.
Before we leave Marvel, let's talk about that Wakanda Forever trailer, which I think I've legitimately watched about 10 times already. Wonderful music. It really sets up this big battle. Um, did it. You got to remember, this is going to be ending the phase. So this has to be like an Avengers level movie. Does it feel like it gets anywhere close to like the first Avengers movie? Jonathan, any thoughts?
It's beautiful how it was done. It looks amazing, but yeah, I don't get the same vibes that we did from Avengers. This seems like, its own kind of standalone, really good action-packed, Marvel movie. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Avengers was so much build up to such a big climax that this doesn't have the same feel to me.
Yeah. What did you think, Scott?
um I think the first, Black Panther movie comes from much more of a place of cool confidence, like they
Yeah.
know their strength. Chadwick Boseman is a very not like arrogant, but he's very confident in himself and his abilities.
Yeah.
And that kind of reflects upon their whole kingdom.
Yeah.
And now we've come into a kingdom that's, I mean, it's hard to explain, but they've dealt in tragedy.
Yeah.
And they're having their own problems in a world full of problems. So it doesn't have that same cool confidence. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. They're not trying to recreate, the Chadwick Boseman Black Panther. They're trying to create something with its own identity. And I think that's fine.
Yeah. Just a real quick message. So Squeaks, who was supposed to be on this episode, he's sick as a dog. For Black Panther, he says more of an all of Wakanda coming together than the sister becoming back as Black Panther. So he feels like this felt like more of a Wakanda movie, which makes sense by the title. Just the feel of the trailer. And I think he's right there. I think this is going to be kind of a first off, I was mentioning it before. I think this is going to be this big kingdom versus kingdom battle, a scale that makes it as big as an Avengers movie, and I personally think that it's not just two kingdoms fighting. I think there's a third kingdom fighting as well, Doctor Doom's kingdom, and so I've been seeing some people talk about this where there's soldiers there with guns and stuff like that. Like those guys don't belong to anybody. They wouldn't belong to U.S. They probably belong to Latvia, whatever it's called, Doctor Doom's kingdom. So there's that. And I like how you're saying like, yeah, Black Panther had kind of this cool confidence, and now I mean Wakanda is shook. And so we're gonna see Wakanda deal with that shake. What's her name? Angela Bassett, his mom. I forgot that she's even in this movie, but you don't forget her in the trailer because the way she's like, I'm queen of the most powerful. I mean, like, damn, she's like a mad lioness, right? Like, she's furious at the world that with all the power they have, they couldn't save her son, and you're almost afraid that she's going to take it out on us. Like we didn't do anything, we promise, So I'm really excited about that, and it's going to be amazing. It's like it's a wounded Wakanda, and will they make the wrong choice in this moment? God, I'm more hyped for this movie than I already was hyped for it. Namor looks amazing. I love all the Aztec aesthetics with them. This looks like it's going to be dope. I'm pretty excited about this, and I think Doctor Doom's going to show up. Let me see. Let's go over and check out what Squeaks has got for us for She-Hulk. My one surprise for Marvel, never had any interest, but the new trailer had me kind of looking forward to it. Yeah, so the She-Hulk is going to be 30-minute comedy, so it's going to be different than we thought. And it looks like it's going to be kind of like a new random, sometimes obscure Marvel character each week, and she's the lawyer for them. That I could kind of bite that a little bit easier than I can be like, she doesn't fit in well with the rest of the Avengers in that sense. For X-Men 97, of course it's a watch, no question asked. Hopefully they still keep the 90s feel. You've mentioned this before, Scott, that we're kind of getting nostalgia overkill.
Fatigue.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a 90s kid, right? I was born 1986. I remember waking up Saturday morning cartoons. X-Men was one of my favorites, sure. But I mean, is there anything other than nostalgia being made these days? I mean, when you like, where's the original content? Where are the new stories? I just the constant revamping and rebooting of stuff we've already seen before. It's just starting to really get old to me personally.
Yeah. This one, what I liked about the original X-Men series was that it stayed pretty close to the comics. I mean, like, you felt like you didn't need to read the comics because the series is going to tell you the exact story. And I am looking forward to a series doing that again. So if it actually continues to tell a story of, like, the Sentinels and all that, like, go for it. I'm totally down. Magneto's going to be leading him this time. And it's just basically going to be the next season. By the way, I just remember this, it's not in the notes. Both Gargoyles and Darkwing Duck have comic books coming out. Sorry, John, not series, but they're going to be basically new seasons of the shows. So it's the 4th season of Gargoyles is going to be in comic book form.
I'm going to buy so many issues, they're going to be forced to make it into a show.
Thank you. That's what we need. John, next time you guys are going to see it, John's going to have stacks of comic books behind him, like falling over him,
Buy a
holding him up
warehouse.
as he's podcasting.
No, that'd be awesome though.
Yeah, but nostalgia definitely feels like it's had its day. I will say that though that this show beyond nostalgia, it was so good that I still have faith in it.
Hmm.
That being said, I don't necessarily need to have everything from the '90s come back. It's fun, but we're done.
And
Uh,
I agree with what you're saying. We need some fresh new content. My only concern is they're not likely going to make fresh new content for our generation. It's going to be all geared, to the next generation. And I understand that, but I'd like some shows that are made for us to kind of, like you're saying, like bring back that vibe and the feel of the shows we loved in the '90s, but not retelling the same story.
Do you think
Yeah, I
media
mean,
doesn't understand it? Like, it feels like to me, like I'm thinking, like, okay, what company is even focused on that, making brand new content for a generation like millennials that are '90s kids and geeks and da 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 da. I feel like Peacemaker's a good example of that. Like HBO might be figuring it out, but
Mhm.
CBS, one of the biggest broadcasting, what the hell are they making that I actually want to watch? Uh, outside of Paramount, like Paramount Plus, the streaming service, great stuff on there. We got all the Star Treks, and I mean, I personally really love a sitcom called Ghost over there. But there's not a lot of, it's not like it's geared for us in comparison to when we were younger. Our parents, all the shows were geared to them.
Mhm.
You know, does it seem
Well,
like
because
they're
I think back then, like the parents obviously decided what the kids could watch, but now I feel like the next generations have kind of flipped that on its head, where your kids tell you what they want to watch, and you put it on because you want them to be distracted or something like that. So I don't know the way. I mean, kids use phones and they're so involved in media now that they know what's out there. It's not a parent saying, "Oh, you know what, this goofy movie looks kind of good. Let me put that on for the kids." No, the kids are picking what they want to watch.
yeah. Everybody's entertaining themselves with their own ways, and so and then I think again they figured out something that works with nostalgia, and they're just leaning on it so heavily that
Mhm.
and then like yeah, the new content's coming out for kids, so that in 20 years they can make nostalgia again for those kids. I mean, come on. But yeah. Anyways, as
yeah.
for the rest, go ahead, Scott. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, yeah, I mean, because for all my complaints, um, they do it because it works. Because I'll probably watch the X-Men show,
Yeah.
because it's also just I just want entertainment, and I feel very starved for entertainment these days. Um, but I think also our generation hasn't kind of begun the takeover of media yet. Like we're just kind of hitting that age where we may people our age may start to have an influence in media and being showrunners and stuff, but we're not quite there yet. And when millennials do start to have those positions of authority, then maybe we'll see different things. But I think, yeah, who are the powers that be at these big broadcasting stations and things, they're just interested in what works, and
Yeah.
nostalgia does.
You're right about that. That's a generation wide thing where the millennials are kind of getting into the higher positions later than normal because the generation before them just lived a long time and kept their jobs as long as they could. And so there's been a little bit of a wait on that. So that's a very good point. Let's move on to DC real quick. It should be fast. We had Black Adam trailer. uh, I wanted to gain some confidence out of DC. I have none now. Did you like that Black Adam trailer, John?
I thought it looked good. I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, I don't have anything to dog on it for. It looks clean. I mean, I'm definitely gonna watch it. I don't know
Yeah,
if it's
I think it
gonna.
definitely looks good. I want to clarify. I do like the Black Adam trailer. I just wish
Okay.
that they showed more than just the Black Adam trailer. Like they showed that in a Shazam trailer, and I guess you could
Oh.
count Sandman. But I wanted a Superman. They have a Flash movie coming out this year. They've got, or I mean, it's the beginning of next year now. They got an Aquaman movie. They didn't say anything about those. We just got Black Adam, so I felt like you guys are really hoping The Rock saves the entire company at this point. That's
Yeah,
yeah,
it sounds like they're trying to like kind of soft rebrand right now, and The Rock is just gonna be their spokesperson. Like they just dumped a ton of
yeah.
money into him and say, "Hey, you got to be DC." And maybe, I mean, let's go back 20 years or whatever, 15 years, something like that. Oh God, I'm so old. Yeah, it's probably 20. When nobody really knew Iron Man, comic book fans did, but it was not a household name. And then the movies started to come out. Marvel started to just knock him out of the park. And I mean, Spider-Man was still doing okay back then, but Iron Man became the new like head of Marvel.
Yeah.
And so DC, yeah, you have Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman are the head of DC, but maybe not forever. Maybe Black Adam is going to be their new, superhero on the cereal boxes and everything, and we're going to think of Superman as a thing of the past.
It's tricky though because Black Adam's a villain. So,
Even better.
yeah. So, but you could tell by the trailer already, and it's one of the things that me and Squeaks were kind of worried about is they're gonna do this whole like, he's a bad guy, but he becomes a good guy, and it's like just let somebody be a bad guy. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine. Darth Vader's never gonna be like, flowers and rainbows. He's gonna be a bad guy.
It sounds like they're gonna do the Loki thing though, where he's kind of like he's doing the bad things for the right reason, and then eventually he turns and realizes he's got to walk that line a little tighter.
Yeah, I think you're right. You make a really good point there. Yeah, because Iron Man was like unheard of. I like that idea. Like Black Adam might be the face of the company for a while. He did get booed, by the way. So there's a little bit of a joke. He did. Somebody asked who would win, Shazam or Superman, and a lot of the people in the room there were there to see, hey, is Henry Cavill getting any Superman movies? Because Henry Cavill Superman, I personally really enjoyed Man of Steel. I thought it was a really good movie, but it was bogged down by Batman vs Superman, and then bogged down more by Justice League. So they want to see Henry Cavill still have the role. And so somebody asked who would win in a fight, and The Rock's answer was, well, they're very close. I think it depends on whoever's playing Superman. And he got booed. You know how hard it is for The Rock in America to get booed? It doesn't happen.
That's pretty bad, yeah.
Yeah. He later on, I actually just found it this morning, told CBR.com that Henry Cavill's a friend of his and he really, wants his career to do well and stuff like that. Not necessarily saying that he is Superman anymore, but yeah, I don't know. What do they do with the Superman character, Jonathan? It's such a big character for them. What are they going to do?
Yeah, so I mean, just from that alone, I know that's not a big poll. You had maybe 1,000 people in the room, or 5 or 10,000, whatever it was. But I mean, that shows that fans like Henry Cavill and they want him to continue to play him. So lean into it, make a series with money behind it. It could be a mini series, building up the Superman story, and then Superman versus Black Adam in a movie, and let that be Black Adam's redemption. I know he's probably gonna already be redeemed in his movie, but I think obviously the fans want it, and that would be an awesome story to tell. So
I could see like an HBO level movie or series. Thanks, Scott.
I mean, I think Black Adam's one of those characters that varies between like a villain and an anti-hero.
Yeah.
Which I'm all about anti-heroes myself. And villains. They're usually my favorite characters. So, I think with Black Adam, yeah, obviously they're definitely trying a rebranding kind of thing. And The Rock's a really great way to do that. But it is hard to just ignore the presence that Superman has always had on the DC universe.
Right.
And what are they going to do with Batman? I mean, some people, I guess, liked the Ben Affleck Batman, but let's be real. Batman versus Superman was a terrible movie.
Yeah. And
Ben Affleck was, in my opinion, a mediocre Batman. He's an okay Bruce Wayne. He plays that vibe better. But yeah, Henry Cavill makes a great Superman, and a lot of people just really like Henry Cavill. So they're definitely trying to figure out what they're doing with Superman, and unfortunately, that's just kind of leans into DC has no idea what they're doing over the next 2 years.
One thing they could do is write in, if they make a Superman series, write him into where he's becoming a little too controlling, or he's just Superman's not the hero that the people need him to be, and Black Adam is seeing that, like we've seen in other I think you talk about in The Boys, where like a superhero might save a person or a cat or something like that, but they cause so much destruction in the process, or there's so much suffering that they don't see or something like that. There could be a buildup of a story where Superman's just out of touch and Black Adam comes in, and they're you're seeing from Black Adam's perspective that this guy's actually causing so much death and damage that he needs to be stopped. And then
I can see that Superman story the other way around. Like I could see Black Adam thinking he's a hero, and then he like knocks down a building to get this cat off the top.
I mean, that way we can kind of, Black Adam will become the hero to stop Superman, and then Superman retires. That'd be fine. He's like, all right, you guys don't need me anymore. I'm gonna go back to my home planet.
DC's got this real funny problem where every time they make like a random side movie, it becomes outstanding freaking how. Like they make a movie called The Joker. Then they make a movie called The Batman. And it's like, well, yeah, those are the best two movies you made in the last 10 years. And they're not connected to anything. It's like, then just make those. Or if you're going to do a whole connected thing, sounds like you should start again and just let Robert Pattinson run one of them. And it's, I feel like WB, they have a dartboard of bad ideas and like maybe one good idea somewhere in there. And they just keep hitting everything but the good idea. And it's a damn shame. And and then like we had the Shazam trailer. We could talk about that as well. It feels like their version of Thor now, where it's just a comedy. I have very little interest in it. The only thing that could redeem that entire movie is if Black Adam shows up in it, because that'll that's it. I mean, really, there's nothing to it. I don't know.
I disagree. I thought that looked really funny and good. And imagine if Marvel didn't exist, that would have been the biggest, superhero movie of the summer. That looks like to me a huge success for maybe the younger generation and even to some extent for our generation.
Yeah.
But we're comparing it apples to apples with Marvel, who has just so much experience now in turning out amazing superhero movies. So much so we're getting tired of them doing it. But so I think DC's finally kind of getting some traction on what they do, but it's hard because they're competing with someone who's an expert at that already.
Yeah, does that influence that must influence our outlook on DC? And it would be very interesting to take a real deep dive and see if Marvel didn't exist, would DC be having a problem at all? Would we think of this as bad at all?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think even their bad movies would be doing pretty good compared, if there wasn't Marvel to set the scale.
I don't know. I mean, do you remember those George Clooney Batmans? Because I do.
The nipples on the bat suit.
Okay. And honestly, I watched the first Shazam and I thought it was pretty decent. Like I said, it's got more of that later Thor movie vibe, but I like that because it's a movie that's not taking itself too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
The Superman, Man of Steel, right? Man of Steel was taking a very dark, gritty approach to Superman, which I liked because Superman's always felt really campy to me, and I find that extremely boring. And of course, then you throw in Batman, who's also a dark, gritty, hero, and then you throw in Wonder Woman, which was pretty serious still. There was a little bit of comedy, they tried, but sometimes you just need that character that kind of lightens things up. And I think Shazam does a really good job of that. I thought the first one was fun. I'm looking forward to the second one more so than most of these other DC movies, to be honest with you. Because it's just such a I don't know, man, that whole series, Justice League, now they really don't know what they're doing. Are they going to another Justice League or what are they doing with Superman? They don't know. What are they doing with Batman? They don't know. How are they going to change the Aquaman stuff, in the wake of the Amber Heard trial? They don't know. What are they going to do with the Flash because of Ezra Miller's shenanigans? They don't know. So yeah, these
Assault
little
is now
offshoot
shenanigans, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into something that serious necessarily, here, but yeah, I mean, Ezra Miller, obviously they've tried to ignore it. They've tried to just kind of let things run their course because they've already invested in it. But I mean, it's just at the point where I'm pretty sure they've realized Ezra Miller's got to go. So then what do you do? Like, that pretty much leaves your franchise is Wonder Woman and Superman, but you don't know what you're doing with Superman, So it's so confused. And yeah, I think you guys are right? Like these little spin-off movies that didn't really matter to the whole arc are actually some of the best stuff they've done.
Yeah. The fact that Flash this year coming out, like I think December, or no, it was, but now I'm sorry. Yeah, now it's like March of next year. You expect us to see another trailer for that at Comic-Con. It was like the easiest thing you would definitely do. Nope. We're not going to mention that movie. Check it out if you guys. I wouldn't be surprised if that shit lands on HBO Max instead of theaters. And as much as they're trying to not show Ezra Miller ever again, and they already are talking about like, yeah, we're recasting Flash, we're getting a new Flash, we're not using Ezra Miller. Yeah, it's pretty atrocious over there. All right, guys, surprisingly, Marvel and DC weren't the only two things at San Diego Comic-Con. So at 45 minutes, let's go ahead and talk about some other stuff real quick. We had the House of Dragon. We had this big trailer. They actually released it right before Comic-Con, and then they talked about it throughout the event. I personally am a big fan of everything Game of Thrones, right? And I'm even reading this book, slowly but surely. I'm reading the book that this is going to be based off of. Is there still an appetite, though, for Game of Thrones? Or are we at the point now where we're kind of beyond that? At the time, it felt like we need more Game of Thrones. And now we have 8 spin-offs in development. Is there still an appetite for it? Jonathan?
Oh, definitely. I think as soon as they start to release the trailers regularly, when the show's about to air, and there's going to be so much energy in the air, so much build up before it, people are going to be rewatching the previous series and stuff. Yeah, I can't wait. I'm pretty sure it's going to be huge, and I hope this is as good as the original story. Obviously, like you're saying, they're going to have 8 different spinoffs, so I think there's going to be something for everyone out of that. But they did such a good job with Game of Thrones. I don't think they're gonna mess this up.
Yeah. This is going to be taking place during the Dance of the Dragons. It's a Targaryen civil war. Basically, a king, his name is Jaharis. He lives so long that he actually, instead of his kids inheriting, his grandkids inherit from him. And there's a bunch of kerfuffle over like which house should actually get it, because at that point there's enough mix-ups, and the Valarons, like other near Targaryens, get involved. So it's a bit of a mess. So basically, it's going to be Targaryen versus Targaryen. A lot of dragons, guys. A lot of dragons. But there's not a lot of source material. Scott, we've talked about this. How do you think they're going to do? What's your confidence in them not having the same amount of source material?
I perceive I think it's going to be one of two things, right? Because definitely the last few seasons of Game of Thrones, as much as I've tried to defend them, because I still enjoyed them, we definitely see a drop in quality as they reach the end of the last book that has been written.
Yeah.
Right. So without solid source material, the show kind of fell apart. They tried, they did the best they could. How much of that was George R.R. Martin's holding them back almost, and trying to keep them tied down to plot lines that he hasn't honestly probably solidified himself, but then again, I think there's enough of just a foundation of lore that if they have the creative license they need, maybe they can do something great with it, so I just really see it going one of two ways, which is we're going to get something new, something exciting that they're really having fun with.
Yeah.
Or we're going to get, basically the last 3 seasons in Game of Thrones again, which were decent.
Yeah, which weren't bad necessarily, but yeah, it's hard. It's hard because it's like, well, they didn't have as many chats around the table that I liked. It's hard because they were still dope as hell, but in comparison, it's kind of the DC to Marvel situation again, where when you're comparing it to what was perfect before, you're having a hard time with it.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, there's so many like beloved characters in the Game of Thrones series that it's almost like, can I imagine a Game of Thrones series without them? I mean, no Tyrion Lannister, really? Like, how do you do that?
By the way, oh my God, Disney Mom's gone wrong. On the next episode, they call him Tyrone Lannister for so long.
Yeah, I saw that TikTok too. That was crazy. That's funny.
They had me. They're like, it starts with a T. I think it's Tyrone Lannister. I was like, oh no. It was, anyways. Yeah, I think it'll be good. No matter what, I think it'll actually be good. It's just that Tyrion Lannister, Jon Snow, some of the greatest characters, and the source material exists for this. It's just in comparison, it's like trying to make 3 movies off The Hobbit versus trying to make 3 movies off of the Lord of the Rings series. Obviously, one is better than the other, So we'll have to see what's going forward.
Hey, I like The Hobbit, okay?
I like The Hobbit too, but you can't realistically plan on making 3 movies out of that. It's a very short book, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I know The Hobbit gets a lot of hate, and I get it, but I really enjoyed him. I think they did a really decent job of making it into 3 movies, but like, holy shit, I was not expecting that.
That third one felt like a stretch in my opinion. That one felt
Yeah,
like I was
yeah.
like,
The third one was really pushing it.
yeah. So we'll see. All right, and then we live in a great. So lately, if you guys are geek fans like us, you've been watching Star Trek and Orville and sci-fi galore. Well, we're about to head into the fantasy side of that. We're gonna have House of the Dragon and the Rings of Power. We got our first trailer for this. This is gonna be off of the Silmarillion, kind of the textbook for the Lord of the Rings world. Scott, how familiar are you with this Silmarillion story?
I've never sat down and read the Silmarillion. And there's a couple other books. I think it's like the unexplored tales or something like that.
Yeah.
There's a couple books around this, but I've spent a lot of time on Wikipedia, and I've dealt in some discussions on Reddit and Quora and stuff. So I'm kind of an amateur Tolkien. I don't know. They have like a name for them, right? Like,
Of
like
course they do.
a Tolkien historian or something
Oh
like
my
that.
God.
Like, so I
Oh.
know enough to know that I don't know as much as I'd like.
Yeah, that's fair. I want to know Elvish, but I'll just know how to say hi and where's the bathroom.
Yeah, there you go.
One thing I will say, when I heard about this series, I'm like, yeah, but it's never going to be the same thing as Lord of the Rings. It's never going to be as good as that. This trailer, though, I still don't think it'll live up to the nostalgia aspect of Lord of the Rings, but quality-wise, it feels like it's on par with that. Do you agree with me, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, it looks really good, and they've allowed themselves this really big time period to kind of work with. And I do think it is going to span a long time, which is why it's going to focus a lot on the elves. The quality is there. Obviously Amazon spent a lot of money on this. But I'm really excited to dive back into the world of Lord of the Rings. I mean, The Hobbit was fine and all, but it didn't really fulfill the lore that I want to see. The real story. There's so much to pull off of. I mean, J.R.R. Tolkien, the Silmarillion is basically, it's like a history book. So just imagine you're given license, like, hey, make some movies, and the dates we want you to make it work in is like from the year 1000 to today. Like that's the kind of there's so much they can do,
right?
And I really, really hope they do it well, because the Tolkien universe is actually really amazing if you give it the time to tell its story.
That's a good point. Like, it's such a big span. It's like if you're trying to do a lot of history, it's like, okay, so George Washington and Abraham Lincoln team up, they fight the Nazis, and then it's going to be a little tricky in that sense. And I will say also, House of the Dragons, that's off of their textbook. So both of these stories are like history books. Now make a narrative out of them, to a degree. And then The Hobbit, I think it did a good job of like it. The book for The Hobbit was never meant to expand the lore. It was meant to kind of introduce you to this world, and there was enough mystery there that you were like, man, I can't wait to learn more. Then they're like, okay, well, here's Lord of the Rings, and it really kicked open that door. So this is like taking the wall off that the door was on, and you're really gonna see everything. It's gonna be a big, wide open picture, and I'm pretty hyped about that. Jonathan, what are your thoughts about all this?
I'm excited. I loved the Lord of the Rings, movies, and there's just never enough content for it. So I'm happy to see the series. My question for you though is side by side, watching these two trailers, which one do you think is going to buy them more subscriptions between HBO and Amazon?
Such a good question.
I only recently got Amazon Prime, so now it's a whole nother library of stuff I can watch.
Yeah.
But I already had HBO, so it wasn't even a question for me that I would watch Game of Thrones. But I knew I wanted to get Amazon before the series started to air. But I'm sure you probably already have Prime, but do you think that if somebody has HBO and not Prime, that they would subscribe as well just to get this other show, or do you think one show would be enough?
I don't know. I can't justify what I'm saying, but I think the Game of Thrones one would get more new subscribers than the Lord of the Rings one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not necessarily sure why.
I agree, and I think it's because they have the most recent hype. Game of Thrones has had those great movies a while back, and The Hobbit and stuff like that, but nothing that everyone was talking around the water cooler about recently. And the Game of
Yeah.
Thrones, series just ended, what, 2 years, 3 years ago, and it was pretty hot and popping when it was.
That's a good question. What do you think about that question, Scott?
I mean, as much as I'm a Lord of the Rings fan, and a Game of Thrones fan, I think Game of Thrones right now is definitely more relatable.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who's a little younger than us, maybe they didn't grow up just watching Lord of the Rings all the time. They're more introduced with the Hobbit movies, which I think are fine, but probably you're not like, oh man, like I really want to see more about this world, you know, be, uh, yeah, and there's unless if there's, I don't think there's a, well, maybe there is. Is there a monthly subscription to Prime Video, or is it just that
That's a
chunk
good
of
question.
buy Prime?
I think it's like all Prime. Yeah, I think it's basically just Prime. Right, Jonathan? You
Yeah, and
just
I,
got it.
I
What do you think?
think
Is that true?
I think
Yeah,
that's where they're messing up.
yeah, we didn't get video separate. I don't know if that's an option. We just got regular, like
Okay.
a Prime subscription. But
Yeah.
if that's not an option, I think it really should be, because I think that would increase their sales a lot. Yeah, I don't order stuff on Amazon or whatever, which I don't think there's a person
That's not a thing
out
anymore.
there. Yeah, everybody does. But if you don't care about shipping times and stuff like that, then at least you, for $3 a month or something like that, subscribe and get access to all their shows.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hyped for all of these, but yeah, what you're saying about watching Lord of the Rings all the time, it kind of threw me off because it reminded me of like every time a more unedited version came out, I've got it like a more
Oh yeah,
director's cut. Now with 11 more minutes of elves walking around, I gotta go to Walmart. So,
I
Dress
will
up like
sit
an elf
down
just
and I
to go
will
buy the
watch.
extended.
Exactly. I will sit down and watch all 15 hours of these 3 movies.
yeah, so much. Oh man, Helm's Deep, that battle. It's still
Mm.
the most perfect thing ever put on screen. It's so gorgeous. Oh, it's so cool. Oh man. All right, let's go and talk. Hey guys, we have another fantasy thing that surprised me. Dungeons and Dragons trailer. I forgot this was even a thing. It's a movie, and my immediate reaction to this is that it feels like it's Guardians of the Galaxy but fantasy. It's funny. It doesn't take itself seriously, and for some reason, I think that works perfect for Guardians of the Galaxy or for Dungeons and Dragons because that's how it is when you play Dungeons and Dragons. Scott, you and me were on the same D&D team for a while until people have got busy with like life and weird shit like that. What do you think
Yeah,
about this?
God, get a life, people.
I know, man.
Um, yeah, no, I think I actually watched the first one that came out in like 2003 or something like
Yeah.
that. And it's terrible. You know, I mean, they did not invest well in the CGI for one thing, but it was just bad. And now that I've played D&D with people, it feels like a movie that was made by people who had never played D&D. Like I first went into D&D like, oh man, yeah, I'm a warlock. I'm got to be serious. We got to win.
Yeah.
And even, because my warlock died very quickly. So I made my paladin and I was like, I'm going to be a super serious, good paladin. But like,
I forgot
that's,
about that.
Kyle was off doing pure insanity. Like that's just all you can say is he was purely insane doing things. But that was what made it so much fun, especially when it worked. And you're like, how does this work? And that's where I think the second one is coming from, is just like insane. They're hitting that insanity that players enjoy while doing a campaign.
Kyle would randomly find orbs in caves and basements and would just shove them into his head, guys. He'd take an orb, shove it into his head, gave him god powers. Like, what the hell are you doing, man? Or would shut him down sometimes. Like, he's like, I find orb, I grab it, shove it into my face. Like, what? And then eventually he got the 5 orbs and he became super powerful. It's a whole thing. And we're just like, meanwhile, like, I'm trying to keep people alive and I can fly. So I'm always like, I'm going to keep you guys alive until I think I might get hurt. And then I'm getting the hell out of here. And yeah, I remember what happened to your warlock. That's not great. But that was man, I miss D&D. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, I like that idea of the shenanigans that go on during a casual D&D game. I'm sure there's some of you people out there that play hardcore D&D games. You're not having fun enough. That'll be good. Jonathan, you don't play D&D. What was your reaction to this?
it looked like it's gonna be a good movie, but it looked like it was, all the fantasy stuff that we like and like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. Though Game of Thrones is a little more mainstream, I give you that, but it looked like this movie was made to be watched by people who don't really know that world yet, and
Hmm.
they'll find it kind of funny and maybe a segue, a way to bring them into the fantasy world a little bit.
Yeah. There are some definitely callbacks or references to the game. D&D is so expansive that like yeah, beholders are a thing, but you could basically make up any creature you want. As we've seen many a times. I My favorite part though, a little reference, was the fact that Chris Pine, who I'm happy he's working. Sometimes it feels like he does, is a bard. He's got a little lute, and that's his big thing. And it's like if you guys know bards, I feel like the first time you play D&D, you play whatever looks cool. The second time you play D&D, everybody wants to be the bard because it's just this like badass thing where it's like everybody's fighting with swords, and you're over there like, let me play this tune that'll make the dragon dance and throw everything off. It's great. So I can't wait for them to toy around with the bard character. He feels like again with Guardians of the Galaxy, Peter Quill, Star Lord. He feels like one of those characters. Yeah.
Mhm.
Anything else on Dungeons and Dragons before we move on to Star Trek?
Negative.
Negative. Okay, Star Trek. We got a couple things here. We got a first look at the next gen crew. Old Man Worf is looking good. All right, I love Old Man Worf, right?
The nice silver hair and everything.
Yeah,
Looking
not a
legit.
captain. What do you think happened to him where he's not a captain now? Everybody else is a captain.
Maybe he didn't want to be a captain. That's a lot of responsibility.
I
Who wants to
I
be in
think
charge
it's
of all these
that.
other people? Yeah.
Or I think maybe he still has like a Star Trek uniform. He's got the yellow on top, but
Mhm.
maybe like he got promoted in the Klingon side of things, and so he's part of like a Klingon High Council or something like that. And so we'll
Well,
maybe
he
see
wouldn't be
something like
wearing a Starfleet uniform, would he? If he was,
right. I don't
he's
know.
he's probably better fit to be an ambassador between the two nations, anyways.
Yeah, because
So maybe moved up within Starfleet, but doesn't want to take the responsibility of captaining a ship.
yeah,
He's better fit to be flexible to work between the two.
Spock, legendary badass, of course, basically left Starfleet to then foster a union between Romulans and Vulcans. He's the reason Romulans and Vulcans got along afterwards, and I like the idea that maybe Worf is like that important to his people now. And so maybe
Mhm.
we'll see something like that. He's wearing a sword on the back. I saw this morning. Somebody explained this. The sword on his back is actually designed by the guy that designed the bat lifts. And so
Mm.
maybe that sword will be like a ceremonial sword that's like this is for the ambassador of our planet or something like that.
Mhm.
Something that'll really lean into it. That'll be really cool. Other stuff we got Lower Decks. Within Lower Decks is going to be headed to Deep Space Nine. Did you watch the Lower Decks trailer by chance, John? I didn't end up putting it
I
on our
did
Discord.
not. No, I love this. I mean, I love it and I don't love it because to me, Lower Decks just does not feel like Star Trek at
It's
all.
not, yeah.
And I kind of don't want it to be touching too much of the things that I love. But if they're going to, then yeah, you got to go to Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
It would be awesome. But yeah, it's just kind of like this is too much fun and not enough following the rules. But
It's 100% that. Like the Cerritos would have been blown up by Starfleet so many times over. Just be like, no, that ship can't exist. But I do like.
yeah,
There's one moment where they get to the Deep Space Nine and they need to like stall for time, and so they have these like meta jokes all the time. And one of them is this, where he's like, "Well, just fly around and be impressed by the pylons." And so they do like that shot when you first get into Deep Space Nine, where like they're flying around the space station, like, "Look how cool the space station is," and they're doing that, and the pilot's like, well, what do you want me to do now? It's like, no, just keep flying around, bro. Just keep being impressed. So
nice.
that kind of tongue-in-cheek humor, I really appreciate. It's definitely a departure from Star Trek, though. Um,
Yeah.
and then also, this part is a tough one to understand how they're going to do this. But apparently, the Cerritos crew will appear on Strange New Worlds. How? How
Mm,
will this work? This is
yeah.
definitely mixing the worlds up.
Yeah, that would have to be Strange New Worlds crew going into a different dimension or a digital form or something like that. Maybe a holodeck simulation
Holodeck,
kind of
yeah.
thing.
But
But yeah, I hope
holodeck
they
was a
don't.
holodeck around in Strange New World era? Because that's TOS.
No, no, that's right. They don't think they think Next Gen was the first one to show a holodeck. Though Strange New Worlds is bending a lot of rules about what technology they had at the time. But yeah, I hope they don't try to make the Cerritos crew live action and bring them into that because that would just be messy. I think.
I actually would prefer that. I would prefer if like what is his name? Daniel Quaid, that can be right. And if if the two of them actually were like their live action actors came over, because that's the guy from The Boys, it's the one from Space Force, those two actors. If they came over in live action, I would prefer that more so than two cartoons walking around like Roger Rabbit. You know.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking like the Strange New Worlds crew becomes animated too, and they are in some program or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really corny or cheesy or whatever too. So
Yes.
I think they should just go ahead and not do it. It's just not mix
I know.
animated and live action. That'd be fine.
Scott, are you keeping up on any of this new Star Trek stuff?
No, I don't. I don't watch TV like on a TV. And I don't have Paramount Plus, so no. But to go off that, like, because I mean, if like Strange New Worlds is, the original series time period, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, what's it? The Lower Decks is like next gen Deep Space Nine timeline or time period. Like, you have to make animated and live action compatible with time travel. Yeah, I don't know. I'm with Jonathan. I don't think they should even go down that road.
Guys, I just solved it. It's a Q. A Q's got to do something. Just make a Q make this all happen.
There you go. Yeah, and actually Lower Decks has to be post Voyager, right? Because the whole Paris plate and stuff like that must be. Yeah, it's later. So yeah, they're definitely offset from time.
Is it next gen post Voyager?
No. Next gen is followed by Deep Space Nine.
Because in Nemesis, he talks to Admiral Janeway.
In that's true.
Nemesis, he talks to yeah.
And there's that Ferengi goes through a wormhole on Next Gen and then comes out in Voyager on False Prophets. Remember that?
Maybe Kevin will know.
Yeah, so they maybe Voyager and Next Gen are on the same timeline. I don't know.
Yeah, there must be something there. And Nemesis is one of the movies, so that could be quite a bit in the future. Mm-hmm. That's hard to tell. Nemesis is good though. Check that out, guys. And then last thing I want to mention, Shatner got some beef because he said that Gene Roddenberry will be rolling in his grave over this latest Star Trek stuff. He thinks it's all terrible and not living up to code. Now, I want to throw this out there. Shatner's like in his 90s. I think he's just a grumpy ass old man at this point. And so I think this is just old man talking. What are your thoughts, Jonathan?
I got to agree with Shatner to an extent. Yeah. I don't think Gene Roddenberry would have made any of this new stuff that's out right now. Maybe Discovery. I think that would fit. And so let me rephrase that. I don't think he would have made Lower Decks at all. Mm-hmm. He would have maybe done
Star Trek though.
Yeah, and he may have done another animated Star Trek, but it would have been like his Star Treks, not tongue in cheek and all like this slapstick kind of humor. It would have been fitting for his vision. But that being said, if it continues to pursue his vision, even just through someone else's perspective, then I think it's good. But to me, I don't think it does. I don't think it's the same message or anything that he really originally envisioned. So that's why I love all the Star Treks except for Lower Decks, because to me it's just not a Gene Roddenberry based production at all. It's just they are stealing the logos and stuff like that, but it's not Star Trek. So I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so, Lower Decks, I'd argue, is probably my favorite version of Star Trek out right now. I mean, just
means you're not a Star Trek fan. Sorry.
Well, I'm an adult animation fan above all. I mean, like I watch Simpsons and Futurama and Bob's Burgers all the time.
And Morty. Yeah.
Rick and Morty, yeah. But so that it was a really good combination of two worlds. But I know I don't take it seriously. Like the fact that it's not canon, I think, is kind of important to me. So there's that.
Do you think Gene Roddenberry would like to see something like that made, or do you think it would not jive with him?
Lower Decks, I could see being a problem, but I think one of the big complaints is Discovery, because Discovery's the one where people really throw a fit over, and a lot of it's because of virtue signaling and whatnot. And at the end of the day, like in his complaint, Shatner was saying like, "Oh, I known him for 3 years. I got to know him pretty good." But then if you look into it, because of course I did, if you look into it, a lot of the people out of the regular TOS crew and Next Gen, when he came on the Next Gen crew, did not like Shatner. Like he was an asshole on set, right? So I kind of feel like there's also a level of, like, if you look at George Takei, definitely wouldn't be saying that about Discovery. George Takei, I'm sure, loves Discovery.
Yeah.
Same crew. And then if you look at the Next Gen people, shit, Jonathan Frakes just directs them.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think that's why I chalk a lot of this up to he's like 91 years old and he's grumpy.
Yeah, and so that's where I
It's
would draw the
tough.
line. Is I don't if he's talking about Discovery, then I think he's wrong. I think Roddenberry
Yeah,
would like it. It's not his exactly what he would have produced himself. It's his vision being continued on by the next generation.
yeah.
But I don't think he would like Lower Decks. Is my only
And I believe he's
complaint.
specifically talking about Strange New Worlds because somebody asked him about the new version of Kirk that came up in Strange New Worlds, and
Oh yeah,
I can't imagine him not liking Strange New Worlds because that's feels, in my opinion, much like TOS.
yeah. More than any of the other shows we've
Yeah.
seen, that feels so much more like his original few series.
So take it with a grain of salt, guys. I will throw out this. He also said fuck Star Wars except for Mark Hamill. So that tells you what's going on with this old guy. He literally said that fuck Star Wars except for Mark Hamill because he's working with Mark Hamill on He-Man. He joined He-Man. So it's like if you weren't working with him, would you just say fuck Mark Hamill too? Yeah, who knows?
That's pretty bad.
What an old fart. He came back from space and grumpy.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, because I think it's important to remember, like Star Trek has oftentimes not even been. It's not about science. It's not about space. It's about the cultural evolution
Right.
of us. You know, um, back on Earth is a utopia, kind of. Perfect government and society and stuff. Obviously, sometimes we have episodes that come back to Earth, and nothing's perfect.
Yeah.
We see flaws, but it's definitely a lot. They're doing a lot better than we are these days. So it's an evolution of humanity, and I mean, Gene Roddenberry very early on was tackling these cultural issues in a very straightforward way. Where we see with Uhura and Kirk, and their kiss, which was unheard of at the time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, if Discovery is going even further into that, I think that's exactly what he would want. And there's always been a lot of scientific basis for the show. He seemed to really enjoy the science behind space travel and all these gadgets and stuff, where we see like they have their little communicators. Now we have flip cell phones. But yeah, like it's not just a space show. It's a show about humanity.
100%. Yeah. That's kind of really what the core is. What was Kevin always says? Star Trek uses sci-fi to tell stories. Basically, oh, that's what it is. Star Trek uses the lens of sci-fi to look at problems of today, and so yeah, I mean, like that's what Star Trek's about. And if you're not happy with what Star Trek's showing right now, it's because you're not happy with what's going on with today, and I think that's kind of what it boils down to.
I mean, maybe William Shatner isn't really a Star Trek fan.
Oh, burn!
Probably.
He's all into that Stargate. I knew it. No, I love Shatner and everything like that. I just think that at a certain age, you kind of just don't care anymore. It's not like my grandpa's watching a lot of TikToks and is gonna know what's up on the TikTok trend. He doesn't care about some emu that keeps interrupting a girl. He's just not gonna give a crap. So,
And he's not worried about censoring himself anymore either. He doesn't care what people care
right,
if he says something offensive. He's like, yeah,
yeah,
whatever. F those people.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, last couple things here. National Treasure series not gonna have Nick Cage. So
I think that's fine though, right? I mean, he's
he's
a
the
good
reason I
actor,
watched it.
but yeah, the movie, yeah. But I think the series could be good if it follows the same kind of treasure hunt, story, with some interesting facts and true history in it. It could still be good without him. It's probably not going to bring in the big bucks that they expected if it had
Yeah.
Nick Cage in it.
It's going to be on Disney Plus, so I'll probably watch it because of that part. They get you. That damn Disney Plus is getting better and better all the time. What else we got? Walking Dead spinoff. Okay, this one got me hyped. Rick and Michonne series. So it's going to be basically just about Rick and Michonne. I'm probably tuning in because of that because I just miss Rick Grimes, and
Where was the timeline of that? At what point was it just the two of them together though?
it'll probably be after Walking Dead. Walking Dead's ending this year. That
Okay.
next year, whatever. This next season is the last half season of Walking Dead.
So it's going to be old man Rick. I was hoping it was like kind of early on, when they first met. Maybe there's a couple years that we missed, and it did a time lapse, go back and see those years.
That would have been cool. But yeah, I think this is going to be older Rick because we had a Rick movie that was going to be made, and they said this is going to we're going to remove the movie and actually be a series. So,
Nice.
yeah. And then we talked about the Avatar movie. So what was your biggest takeaway from San Diego Comic Con? Going in, we had a lot of concerns on what we wanted to see, what kind of directions we wanted to get. Coming out of it, what was your biggest takes? Scott, let's start with you.
Um, I mean, I think we're just, I don't know, it just feels like the entertainment industry in general is just kind of marking time, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, some things are getting better, some things are getting worse. Like the DC universe and the Marvel universe is getting better, but overall, it just feels like more of the same that we've had for the last 10 or 20 years, now since Iron Man came out. So I don't know. Like I'm still going back to I'm looking for something new, something fresh, something exciting. As much as I am ready to enjoy some of these things that are coming out, it just feels like I'm still in high school, watching Marvel and Lord of the Rings movies.
Yeah, that's fair. For myself, I wanted to make sure that we had a direction for Marvel, and we definitely have that now. I'm very happy with the direction for Marvel. I'm a little worried in the pacing because, I mean, like, if you guys think about it, 2005 is not very far away. Entire three phases squished into that feels so fast. When the first three phases took 10 years, it feels like it's going to be much quicker. But I'm happy with the direction because Secret Wars is a really cool thing. And then I one thing I took away from San Diego Comic Con is how important it is that they're adapting and going to the streaming market. I think this is something we knew was coming for a while now. It's been obvious. Stranger Things is more important to me than any movie that came out this year, and Marvel knows that. Marvel's making stuff for TV, specifically for TV. And they're either going to force you to do it with some shows, or they're going to be like, look, we could develop this character in a better way with other shows. And I think Paramount now, they don't care about making Star Trek movies. They don't need to. They're going to make these shows and they're going to be really good, or you're going to watch them at least. And that's it. So I think that we're seeing now kind of this solidified era of, hey, we're going to our own streaming services. Remember you guys when like Paramount Plus and all that stuff was getting launched, and we're like, this isn't going to last. I mean, Netflix will knock them out, and hell no. They're actually
Back when
all
it was
doing
CBS
pretty
All
well.
Access. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all doing pretty well though, actually. And you could bounce in and out of them if you want to, or unfortunately, or what we actually do, we'll have everybody pays for something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Jonathan, what did you pull from this Comic Con?
Yeah. So same thing. Like here, you're saying that pretty much all these streaming services that we thought were just going to kind of fall apart, they're actually developing and growing to where there's going to be this big dogfight, this big competition, and we're going to be the ones that reap the benefits. Because if
Yeah,
you are willing to subscribe to them, you're going to see just major hit after hit going on streaming. So it's nice because we don't have to go to theaters for everything. Like you were saying, WandaVision was so big, and you kind of need to see it to know the MCU storyline. But it was something that you watch at home, and you don't have to wait and have that date night. It's once a week. You get another taste of it, or if it's dropped all at once. But so that's kind of nice. I like that we're getting more streaming, and that's where the big competition is now, not as much as it used to just be completely dominated by the box office.
yeah.
I'm kind of disappointed that we didn't get more about the Avatar movie that's coming out. I'm ready for them to just start
Or the
launching.
Netflix Avatar series. It's
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that's kind of, and that's got to be finishing up pretty soon, right? I thought it
they're
was supposed to
filming
come out
right
end of
now.
this year.
That's
Okay.
definitely not happening yet, but they are filming it right now. I know that much.
Yeah, probably COVID delays and everything.
Yeah.
But I am excited to see. Well, one thing we talked about more, and it's kind of more obvious now, is that a lot of these companies are moving into the fantasy realm a little more, with the fact that we're getting a lot more Game of Thrones. We're getting the new Lord of the Rings series, Dungeons and Dragons movie. So we've seen Marvel with all these superhero movies and then all these space movies, and kind of when one company's doing something like that, they all kind of follow a similar trend because that's what's popular at the time. So I'm wondering if Disney kind of jumped the gun a little bit, jumped the shark, and made Eternals a little too soon because that was supposed to be their
Yeah.
tiptoe into fantasy. I wonder if they waited, maybe that would have been more successful. And I'm hoping that, like, I know we've had Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones before, but I'm hoping this is kind of a new era where that's going to become like really popular and we're going to get more content in that general realm.
I wonder if Eternals would have done better if it was told as like Eternals nowadays reflecting back on their time in fantasy eras, in
Hmm.
Gilgamesh's time and stuff like that, where That would have been, I think, probably better use of their movie, because the movie, in my opinion, floundered a little bit, and so I think it would have been more interesting to see them like trying to solve local problems and them actually sparking the war against Troy and stuff. That would have been pretty neat.
Yeah.
Comic-Con's goal is to sell comic books. We didn't talk about comic books at all, but I know that I'm going to be going back and reading the 8 issues of Secret Wars, and I'll probably be reading the 16 issues of Kang's Dynasty. There's a couple others I'm interested in. I don't know if you guys are big on comic book reading. Is there any comic books that you'd want to pick up based off of what you've seen today?
I'm definitely going to hit the Gargoyles ones you talked about.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And I'm sure that I think there's still more of the Star Trek, like the Mirror Universe series that they have going on. I'm super behind on it, but I have like the first 6 issues, I think. So I definitely want to get the rest of those to complete that one.
In September, they're launching a Lower Decks and I think a Strange New Worlds comic as well.
Nice.
Yeah. What do you think, Scott?
I'm not much of a comic book reader myself. But in the interest of we're delving into the fantasy world more. I mean, I've got a bookcase full of books that there's some great stories there. If any movie studios would like to hit me up and get my recommendations of what they should go with next, okay?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of good stuff out there that we're just ignoring. And I'd love to see, kind of a renaissance, of fantasy, because we're getting this fantasy stuff, but it's fantasy stuff we've seen before. Mm-hmm. So hopefully some people start to take little risks and be like, let's dip our toes in this fantasy series or that fantasy series, and maybe we'll start to get some new content out of it.
Maybe what the unsung hero is, just real quick, the unsung hero, The Last Kingdom, because I think that's been keeping that freaking torch lit while people were making Game of Thrones and making Lord of the Rings, reboots. The Last Kingdom's been holding that damn fantasy torch quite well.
Which isn't even fantasy.
It's more historical
fiction, but it ticks a lot of the boxes.
Right, it feels like
you see
good.
The big battles and the people with the swords and the leaders trying to motivate their armies in these overwhelming odds. I mean, King Alfred trying to just living in a swamp. His kingdom is a swamp at one point.
Loved him and hated him.
Cobbles an army together with Uhtred, and they take on the great heathen army. It's really amazing, and anyone who hasn't watched that show, I really think should.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing is we need to rekindle the LARPing and start making some big events locally.
All right, John, you lead the way on that. I'll attend.
All right.
You just signed up for it.
You gotta help me make like my foam armor, right?
Hell yeah.
All right.
As long as I can be an archer in the background, heck
yeah. There you go.
I'm a thick boy archer. Woo!
I like it.
All right, guys, that is it for us this week. Thank you so much for joining us. I know this has been a long one, but I mean, it's San Diego Comic-Con. What'd you expect? Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
See you later.